First presidential debate, which of course is happening on Thursday. This was written by somebody we know very well. And joining us right now to discuss CEO sentiment on the 2024 election is Jeffrey Sonnenfeld. He's Yale School of Management Senior Associate Dean for Leadership Studies, also a CNBC contributor. His op-ed, which was trending yesterday in the New York Times on Sunday, he says that former President Donald Trump, quote, continues to suffer from the lowest level of corporate support in the history of the Republican Party, and effectively makes the case that CEOs are not for Trump. And so, Jeffrey, we want to talk about this because, you know, I think we hear certain things anecdotally. You say you hear things anecdotally, and I think we're all trying to make some sense of where things really are. So what do you say?
Well, thanks, Andrew, and thank you for kind of blazing the trail in getting the record straight last weekend, coming off of the Business Roundtable meetings, where some press wrongly reported it as if the CEOs had gathered there coming to see him. It was the quarterly meeting of the BRT, and President Biden had also been invited, but was at the G7 meetings in Italy, but his chief of staff went. And they found it confusing, and were certainly no rounds of applause. And your reporting is corroborated from what we've picked up. Myself talking with three specific CEOs who were there. Two of them are rather hostile to Biden. One of them was uncommitted, and they walked away pretty confused about President Trump. We look back into the data, and we're looking at this now for the last 4 months. We've been pointing out that there are no Fortune 500 CEOs who are supporting former President Trump, and that is a historic break going back to William Howard Taft and through Calvin Coolidge and Ronald Reagan and the Bushes and everything. Is that it's been anywhere from 40 to 60% public and financial support. It's zero now, and it was zero in 2016.
Jeffrey, let me ask you this. Well, one thing just on that statistic alone, because I was looking through the numbers myself and then started thinking about Steve Schwarzman of Blackstone. Would he not be on that list of the top Fortune 500?
No. I'm glad you raised that, because a lot of people are confused. Steve Schwarzman had been a friend of mine for half a century. We had split-level homes in the same community growing up, same high school, and hopefully after this broadcast we're still friends. And Steve is a very smart guy with strong positions, but Blackstone is like number 429. They're not even a Fortune 400 company. So no, he's not a Fortune 100 company. There are none. There are more CEOs with their headquarters based in Rhode Island, the smallest state in the nation, than there are CEOs supporting Trump. There's just one company based in Rhode Island, a Fortune 100.
But that was going to be my second question about how we're determining support. And the reason I ask is, and I'm thinking about even when Jamie Dimon was speaking at the DealBook conference last year, he basically told people and used his bully pulpit to say, go vote for Nikki Haley. Now, he never gave $1 to Nikki Haley, but he clearly, at least at that moment, was supportive, at least, of her. Whether he was going to ultimately support her for president, obviously we will never know. But a lot of these people can use their either bully pulpit publicly without necessarily spending money, or more importantly, I think, are doing something privately, meaning talking to folks, whispering to folks in an environment right now where almost nobody wants to come out publicly for either side.
That may well be the case, but that's not what the headlines were. The headlines were that the CEOs are rebounding, are returning, are racing back to support him. They never did in the beginning. I had him come to one of our CEO summits in 2005, and a lot of the people we talk about on this show, including some names you've already just mentioned, walked out of the Waldorf when he walked in. They said they're going to walk out, and they did. And they've walked out on him, consistently after 2017. August 2017, with Charlottesville, the CEO community walked out en masse. First time in American history, they refused to answer a call to action by the commander-in-chief after the Charlottesville equivocation of the white supremacists with peaceful demonstrators. And then, of course, that led to the dissolution of all those business advisory councils. And then after January 6th, 2021, at one of our forums that was called by, again, a 70% Republican group, all these groups I should mention, they voted unanimously in favor of his impeachment. So They were never there for him in the beginning. They didn't like his style. They hate the wedge issues. And basically, Andrew, CEOs, as you know, are not protectionist. They're not isolationist. They're not xenophobic. And as Steve Schwarzman himself has said at our forums, we believe in investing where there is the rule of law and not the law of rulers. And they take that very seriously.
So if you were to poll your CEOs, and I know you do an event, which I've been to many a times, it's a terrific event with lots of CEOs, and you poll them and ask them, what do you think the numbers would look like today?
I think there would not be a lot of support. I think that a lot of them would have liked Nikki Haley. A lot of them would have liked Mark Warner. They would have liked John Tester. They would have liked John Kasich. I know they could be the only people in the country who like John Kasich. But unfortunately, these aren't the candidates that are before the public that made it through primaries. So I think right now what we would find is what we found when they either enthusiastically or more likely reluctantly voted for President Biden and for Secretary Clinton previously. This group, which again is 70% Republican. You know, once Peter Navarro walked in the room and asked them again how many are Republican, it was about 75%, and he was angry and walked out because he thought it was going to be 100%. But it's a strongly Republican group, but they don't vote that way when it comes to the presidential elections. That's the big break here when Trump came along. We never saw this before in history. And the Trump economic package frightens them. It's extremely inflationary. The tariffs, 10% across the board on all imports, that's just crazy. It'll lead to a 3% increase for sure in inflation and plunging in the GDP. Right. And that's before retaliatory gestures. The increase in the deficit, he wants to cut $5 trillion of taxes with no commensurate cut in expenditures. So these are problems. He doesn't believe in the independence
but
of the Fed.
what do you say to the CEOs? There's a lot of CEOs who are watching us now, probably watching you speaking, saying, but you know what? I don't like the Biden administration when it comes to the regulatory regime right now. I worry about the tax policy and what's going to happen if the Trump taxes roll off in 2025 and what that debate looks like. I mean, there are folks, as you said, 70% of the CEO community Republicans. Do they turn out to be reluctant Biden voters? Do they not vote at all? I mean, where do you think they land?
They'll be reluctant Biden voters. They don't want the fabric of society pulled apart. As Tocqueville said in 1840 when he came to the country, it was public trust that makes the United States different. And what matters there is, he called it social capital, is as valuable as financial capital. A lot of them don't like Biden. Frankly, I have issues with the antitrust policies. I believe, including you, who've done a magnificent job on multiple occasions interviewing Lena Khan, antitrust chief from the Federal Trade Commission. I believe I'm the only guest in the history of this show that's been condemned by her in public, in tweets and elsewhere. I've been harshly critical of a lot of her positions. I think there are many positions of the Biden administration that are imperfect. Becky asked some very good questions to Jared Bernstein on, I believe it was on Friday, just about some tax policies and taxing, unrealized wealth. That probably won't pass there, by the way. There are so many Democrat senators opposed to this, like Mark Warner and John Tester, to name a few, that Ron Wyden, that it has no chance of passing. But there are some things that are not thrilling about the Biden economic proposals, but they're not anywhere near as frightening as devaluing the dollar and the independence of the Fed.